And at the outset, I would like to thank Diabetes India Organizing Committee and my friend Dr. Bansi and the team for giving me this opportunity to talk on a topic, bone and diabetes, not commonly heard, at least a decade back or maybe in last 2 3 years. Few publications are coming from India and some gaining some ground in the field of the diabetes mellitus. So what I'm going to do in next 15 minutes is that I'll show you the data that is there any fracture risk increase in diabetes mellitus? What is pathophysiological insights in the diabetes and bone health? And the two important parameters of bone health are bone quantity and quality, how is it is affected by hyperglycemia. And then obviously muscle is an important aspect of the bone health. So role of sarcopenia and some fracture risk estimation in diabetes mellitus. And finally, one slide on the treatment also. So we all know that hyperglycemia affects almost every organ system of the body, whether it is kidney, nephropathy, retinopathy, neuropathy, coronary artery disease, or the heart failure and the stroke. But one of the major organ of the body is often missed, and there is very little information is available, or we are not talking frequently, that is the skeleton. And the skeleton contributes almost 10% of the responsible for 10% of the cardiac output, but nobody talks about that. Maybe down the years, we see that another microvascular complication of diabetes is the bone health. And a lot of people are working in this field. So let's go to the what is the risk of fragility fracture in type 2 diabetes. So in a very beautiful meta-analysis, and that is showing very clearly that patients with type 2 diabetes are at the risk of increased fragility fractures, and that is significant. It is almost 1.7 times more frequent as compared to the non-diabetic individual. The situation is even more grim in type 1 diabetes, and you can see that in type 1 diabetes, the risk is increased almost 7 times as compared to the normal individuals. Though in India, we are not seeing many patients with the fracture in type 1 diabetes, because if you look at our mean survival of diabetes in India is around 30 to 40 years. And most of the studies, those are done, it is after the 40 years where we expect the patient will develop the fracture. Looking at the overall scenario with the fracture risk, the various sites, hip fracture, wrist fracture, and spine fracture. So you look at the hip fracture, in type 1 diabetes, it is almost 1.7 times more frequent. And in type 2 diabetes, also equally more common at the hip fracture in patient with type 2 diabetes. Even bad in case of spine fracture in type 1 diabetes, 2.5 times more fractures are there, and in type 1 diabetes almost 1.5 times. In this, while reviewing this literature, now we are sure that the patients of type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes are at the risk of developing fragility fracture. So now look at what are the mechanisms, the reason were responsible for the increased fragility fractures in the patients of type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And we all know that bone is a tissue which is continuously in the setting of the remodeling. And this remodeling takes place with the help of three type of cells basically. One is the osteoblast, another is osteoclast, and the osteoblast and osteoclast activity is actually monitored by the another cell that is called the osteocyte. And we all know that osteoblast is responsible for the bone mineralization, while osteoclast is responsible for the bone resorption. The critical balance between osteoblast and osteoclast is very, very important to have the good bone health. So what happens in the type 2 diabetes is because the osteoblast activity is reduced and the osteoclast activity is increased. So osteoclast activity is increased, that is because of the multiple mechanisms, cytokine related, that is because of hyperglycemia per se, because of advanced glycation end product. While the osteoblastic activity is reduced because of reduction in the level of insulin-like growth factor, that is especially significant in type 1 diabetes, then insulin deficiency, reduce amylin levels. So these are the multiple regions. Those are responsible for the inhibition of osteoblast. And then certain other mechanisms like increased adipose tissue that lead to the leptin, and that is ultimately causing the bad effect on the osteoblast. And there is reduced level of adiponectin in type 2 diabetes. Further, it is negatively affect the osteoblast. So in nutshell, we can say that in case of hyperglycemia or diabetes, the osteoblast, which is the bone forming cells, are their activity is reduced, while the osteoclasts, those are responsible bone resorption, their activity is increased because of the multiple reasons. On the top of that, we all know that diabetes mellitus is associated with the hyperglycemia, and that hyperglycemia ultimately responsible for the generation of the advanced glycation end products. And these advanced glycation end products are also accumulated in the bone, and these advanced glycation end products are like carboxymethyl lysine and the pentosidine. So these advanced glycation end products are having direct effect on the bone collagen, and so that leads to decreased collagen fibril deformation. And that is one example of that is the prayer sign, or the collagen is not deform, or is not required to modulate itself. And the indirect effect on the bone remodeling of this advanced glycation end product is the reduced blastic activity. Because of this collagen fibril deformation and because of this bone that ultimately culminates into bone tissue and fracture in the patients of the diabetes mellitus. Another gut microbiota and bone health in type 2 diabetes or in diabetes. So that is, we all know that in case of dysbiosis, there is increased intestinal permeability is there, and because of this increased intestinal permeability, there is increase in the level of the lipopolysaccharides or decreased level of the small chain fatty acids. This increased level of lipopolysaccharides and decreased level of SCFA ultimately results into the this LPS increase leads to the level of nuclear factor kappa beta, that is one of the cytokine. And while decreased level of the small chain fatty acid, that results into reduced level of the GLP-1. In turn, that leads to increased osteoclastic activity and reduced osteoblastic activity. So this gut microbiota alteration in the diabetes might be also playing a role in the poor bone health in diabetes mellitus. Another less known fact about diabetes and the bone relationship is that bone and beta cell axis. So we all know there is a bone marker that is known as osteocalcin. So osteocalcin actually comes from the bone, and in the bone from the osteoblast. The osteoblast secretes the osteocalcin, and osteocalcin actually stays in two forms. One is the carboxylated form, and another is undercarboxylated or uncarboxylated form. So undercarboxylated or uncarboxylated osteocalcin is actually in a active osteocalcin, and this active osteocalcin has a many effect on relation to these various organ system. And the initial effect is there on the beta cells. It acts on the osteocalcin, acts on the beta cells to the GPRC receptor, and that it secretes the insulin. So that is bone and the beta cell axis. Then this undercarboxylated osteocalcin also acts on the small intestine, and from it releases the GLP-1. It also acts on the muscle directly, and it reduces, basically helps in the glucose metabolism. It also acts on the adipocyte, and it helps in the release of the adiponectin, which is, we all know that is the insulin sensitizer cytokine. So ultimately, this undercarboxylated osteocalcin responsible for the improved glucose metabolism. So if there is any problem over here, then osteocalcin is less synthesized, or in that case, then the glucose metabolism will be affected. Though this all hypothesis is to be studied even the at the clinical level, but there the information is available is like this. Now coming to the, after understanding the pathophysiology and the mechanism, that what happens to the bone actually. We know that bone strength is mainly dependent on two things. That is, one is the bone quality, another is the bone quantity. I'll talk more on the bone quality because a lot of things are known about the bone quantity, but less is known about the bone quality. So in my subsequent slide, I'll talk more on the bone quality. So first on the bone quantity. So it is known that type 1 diabetes patients are having low bone mineral density. Type 2 diabetes patients are, traditional teaching is that the BMD is normal or high, but there be various studies in favor and against that from India itself also. That two studies are favoring that patients with type 2 diabetes are having the comparable bone mineral density as compared to the controls, while other studies are telling that BMD is high in the type 2 diabetes in the US. But remember, all these studies are based on the DEXA scan, and the DEXA scan has a problem that it cannot measure the cortical porosity properly, and that's why probably it is giving the high bone mineral density. So I'll try to answer this question, that what actually happens to the bone mineral density in patients of the type 2 diabetes. Another thing is that what happens to the, especially with the bone health in the Indian scenario. So the typical Indian patients of type 2 diabetes, then the central obesity, younger age of onset of diabetes, more central obesity, higher insulin resistance, and because of this higher inflammatory markers are there. And these, because of the higher insulin resistance and high inflammatory marker, there is more to be bone damage. And the younger age of onset of diabetes, that's why there is peak bone mass is also not achieved adequately, and peak bone mass is low as compared to the Western population, and these all ultimately results in diabetic bone disease. On the top of that, another factors those are responsible the poor bone health in the Indians is that early age of onset of menopause. In India, menopause is approximately 42 to 45 years, while in case of Western countries it is 50 to 55 years. So early menopause further contributes for the poor bone health, not in diabetes but otherwise also. And then high prevalence of vitamin D deficiency, and we know all that type 2 diabetes individuals are more adipose tissues there, and that's why they are more prone for the inflammatory cytokine level and this more severe diabetic bone disease. Now coming to the, after talking about the bone quantity, I'll talk briefly about the bone quality. And the bone quality is determined by many factors. One is that protein content and protein secondary structure is important to say, important for the bone quality. Then bone microstructure is another important thing. And then advanced glycation end product. Though there are multiple factors, those are responsible for the bone quality, but this is one of the more important factors. So I'm sorry for this busy slide, but this slide I'm just trying to explain you that you can study the bone health at the multiple level. At the macro scale, meaning by that you can study whole bone. At the meso scale level, you can study the in the millimeter to 5 to 10 millimeter size tissue. The cortical bone and trabecular bone can be studied. At the micro scale level, where this 5 micron to 500 micron micrometer, you can study this with the various modalities, and that we study the osteon and the trabecula of the bone. At the nanoscale, you can study the collagen fiber, collagen molecules, mineral crystal size, cross-link, and all these things. So, and these are the various parameters, the microstructure, the porosity, the aerial BMD, the collagen, and all these things can be studied by this at various levels. So I'll take you this very nice publication in the recent issue of the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, JCM 2021, with the help of our colleagues from the IIT Ropar. So what we did here is we selected 70 patients, 30 diabetes patients and 40 non-diabetic individuals. All these patients indeed sustained a fragility fracture. So during the hip fragility fracture, their head of femur was removed and they subjected for the hip replacement. So we collected these bones from the we compared these all various baseline parameters, their vitamin C, calcium, vitamin D, calcium, phosphorus, PTH, and you can see all are comparable. There is no difference between these two groups. And when we looked at the DEXA scan for the femoral neck BMD as well as the T-score, that was also again comparable in these two groups. So you can say essentially these groups are comparable with these various parameters. So when we studied this tissue with the micro CT, so the micro CT, as I mentioned, you can study from 5 to 500 micron, and what we found is that bone volume was less in the diabetic individuals, compared to the non-diabetic. Then the trabecular thickness also reduced in the diabetic individuals compared to the non-diabetic individuals. Trabecular separation is increased in the diabetic individuals as compared to the non-diabetic individuals. And just you can see, look at this picture, non-diabetic picture of bone, how it is looking like that versus the diabetic bone, how it is looking like that. So you can see lot of fractures are there, and the thickness is much less as compared to this part of the picture. So on the microstructure, we have shown that BMD is better in non-diabetic individuals compared to the diabetic individuals. Then we looked at the composition. We found that mineral content was again low in the diabetic individuals as compared to the non-diabetic individuals. So these two things clearly proven that the mineral content in the patients with type 2 diabetes is less as compared to the non-diabetic individuals. Further, we studied the nano indentation. Just nano indentation is a technique by which we assess the hardness as well. So the modulus depends on the collagen tissue, and the modulus is very important. If the modulus is less, the bone is more fragile. So again, we have shown that on the nano indentation that individuals non-diabetic are having better modulus as compared to the diabetic individuals, and the hardness was again better in the non-diabetic individuals compared to the diabetic individuals. So meaning by that, again, it is showing that BMD is less, that is determined by the hardness, but modulus is also less in patients of type 2 diabetes, and that predisposes them for the fragility fractures. So we know that bone biopsy is not easy task. So we recently published very interesting paper where we use the fingernail of these patients, and we found that fingernail also giving the similar kind of information. Now coming to the sarcopenia, we know that patients with type 2 diabetes are having high adipose tissue content, and that is associated with high inflammation, and that leads to the ultimately there is fat deposition in the muscles also, and that leads to decreased muscle mass, decreased physical activity, and the risk of fall is increased, and that is actually because leads to the sarcopenia. And this high adipose tissue having direct effect on the bone cells also, decreases osteoblastic activity, and increases osteoclastic activity, that finally culminates into the fracture. So fracture risk assessment can be done by the tool that is the FRAX. But just I want to show here is that you can use the FRAX, and that is a better way to use FRAX is that you can use the T-score rather than measuring the secondary osteoporosis. And in case of type 2 diabetes, FRAX can be used, but you have to modify a FRAX little bit. That is, one is either you can increase age by 10 years while you are mentioning age, or you can add rheumatoid arthritis, especially even not having, you have to add that, or you reduce the T-score by minus 0.5. So both these three things, out of these three, you can add one while you assessing the FRAX tool in the patients of the type 2 diabetes mellitus. So treatment, I think not much information is available on treatment. So currently, you can use the alendronate in type 1 diabetes, while the denosumab and teriparatide or abaloparatide can be used for the patients of type 2 diabetes. Well, testosterone therapy and diabetic bone disease, we all know that patients of type 2 diabetes are in the state of functional hypogonadism. So if the test less than 6 nanomole per liter, then in that case, you can treat these patients. If 6 to 10, if patient is symptomatic for the androgen deficiency, you can treat. Otherwise, treatment is not required. So I think I end my presentation by saying here that diabetes is associated with increased fracture risk, more in type 1 diabetes, less in type 2. Bone mineral density is low in type 1 diabetes, and still it is variable in type 2 diabetes. But my impression is that by looking at the in vivo and in vitro studies and micro and at the macro level, that BMD is low in type 2 diabetes also. Bone quality is consistently compromised in diabetes mellitus. Sarcopenia further contributes to increased fracture risk. And so besides all other metabolic controls, I think hyperglycemia control is very, very important. That will help you take care of your reducing the bone fragility, because more the hyperglycemia, more the AGE deposition, and the AGE deposition is directly related to increased fragility fracture. So thank you very much for and also for the opportunity. If there is any question and comment, I'll be happy to take those. Thank you.